What's the purpose of a movie? If just now you were thinking that the purpose of a film is to entertain, then you're almost right, but not quite. In my opinion, the purpose of a movie is to immerse the audience in a story, to make them connect with a character or a situation. One filmmaker does this in a pretty unique way. Christopher Nolan's goal when making movies always seems to be to give the audience the exact same experience as his characters.
My approach to doing that was to effectively tell the story backwards. That way, when we meet a character, we don't know, just like the protagonist, how he's met that person, whether he's even met that person before, or whether or not they should be trusted, that kind of thing.
There are 3 movies which demonstrate this brilliantly. They are The Prestige, Inception, and Memento. But in truth, you can find he does this in pretty much all of his films. In Memento, Guy Pearce plays Leonard Shelby, a guy who is trying to avenge his dead wife by killing her killer. The problem is that he's unable to create new memories due to brain trauma suffered during an assault. This means that he has to piece together his day-to-day activities using post-it notes, which he leaves for himself. Leonard has no knowledge of who he has spoken to or what was said beyond what his own notes say. The film uses an interesting mechanic to tell its story. It's told in reverse order, with each current scene actually being the result of the next scene. This means it's actually impossible for us to guess where the story is heading, why it's heading there, or who we can trust, because we have no knowledge of the backstory. Leonard has to rely on his notes to fill in the blanks, and because the story is told in reverse order, we have to rely on them too. Leonard doesn't have any of the backstory apart from his notes, so we're placed in the exact same position as him. Because our access to information is limited by the structure of the story, we're forced to rely on Leonard's notes just as much as he is. Interactions with other characters become tricky encounters, because we always see the actions before the motive, so trying to second guess which characters are helpful and which characters aren't becomes incredibly difficult. Without the backstory, without seeing the setup for any of the scenes, it's impossible to gauge who is trustworthy and who isn't. This experience of meeting people who we have a relationship with but not knowing what that relationship is precisely how Leonard experiences interactions with other people. He is familiar to them, but they are not familiar to him. Psychology tells us that human beings largely think in chronological order. Our brains have just become accustomed to organising things this way, and so this is how memories are encoded. When we're forced to encode memories in a different order, it becomes very difficult for us to remember things, and so those memories begin to fade and decay. We get the same experience as him because, just like him, we're forced to try and build our memories in an unfamiliar way without a consistent guide to help us. This over-reliance on using the notes to encode his experience is another mechanic that Nolan uses. He sets up the movie with Leonard as the protagonist, following his notes to uncover the secret and avenge his wife's death. Because we have no information besides what Leonard's notes tell us, this puts us in Leonard's shoes, and we spend the whole movie thinking that Teddy is the villain of the movie because all the clues that Leonard collected tell us that he is. But when the movie finishes and we've seen the whole story, we see that Teddy was never the killer and Leonard was his own villain. The audience is given the exact same experience as Leonard. Because of how the story is told and our access to information is carefully controlled, we don't even realise that Leonard is the antagonist of the story until the very last shot, which is also the first scene in the story. In this story, 2 magicians battle against each other to create the world's greatest magic trick. Like any good trick, the film features a lot of misdirection. Michael Caine even explains how we are tricked and why we don't see it.
The magician takes the ordinary something and makes it do something extraordinary. Now, you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it, because of course, you're not really looking. You don't really want to know. You want to be fooled.
Throughout the whole movie, the two dueling magicians are hiding big secrets. They create increasingly more secretive identities, and nobody around them, not even their significant others, ever really know the real them. The purpose of a magic trick is to make us believe that something happened, when in reality it didn't. That's exactly what Nolan achieves with this movie. The movie uses narrated journals to tell large parts of the story. These journals are written by the two magicians, Angiers and Borden. The information rarely comes from an objective source. Even when the information comes from Michael Caine's character Cutter, we still can't fully trust it because he himself is guilty of hiding information throughout the whole movie. The purpose of all these journals and narrations is to sell us a story which didn't happen. The story of how Borden created a real teleportation trick and how Angier did the same. There are some telling pieces of dialogue in the movie which you, I, and pretty much everyone overlook.
Well, how does he do it? He uses a double. No,
Look at the man.
This is the trick. This is the performance. Right here. This is why no one can detect his method.
Dialogue which actually tells the truth. Like Cutter says, we ignore this information because we don't really want to know the secret of the movie. We want to be tricked. The way this movie's structure places us in the character's shoes is to control and deny information in the same way that it's restricted from the characters. Each time a questionable scene happens, we are left with the same unanswered questions that the characters have.
Which knot did you tie?
I keep asking myself that.
And?
And, I'm sorry, I just don't know.
We're drip-fed information throughout the movie through the filter of the characters' eyes, but not enough to answer questions. The characters continually chase each other for the whole movie, never even coming close to the truth about each other. And just like the characters, we're left doing the same because all the information we are given is controlled, faulty, or withheld. The source of the information is always unreliable and is used to direct our attention away from the truth. Just like Borden and Angiers, we don't know which information is true or false. Even the ending of the movie is something that we can't be sure of. Did Nikola Tesla really build a machine which teleports people? Or is it a fiction sold by Angier, designed to lure Borden and us into a false sense of security? We get no information about the machine apart from Angier's journal, which we know contains misinformation from when Borden read it. The final shot shows the many Angiers which have been drowned as part of the trick, but we can visibly only see one. The rest is implied by the story of the machine. Both of these characters never really know the truth about each other until the end of the film. They're constantly left guessing at information which misleads them. And that's exactly the same experience we get. So we've looked at how Nolan uses your memory and expectations to control your reality and give you the same experience as his characters. Inception does something very similar. Inception opens with DiCaprio's character Cobb waking up on the beach and leaving to find Ken Watanabe's character and reveal to him that he's living in a dream. What's interesting is that this whole monologue isn't just setting the story in motion. It's describing exactly how we are going to experience the movie. Throughout the film, Cobb is put into positions where he has to question his reality, where he struggles to determine fact from fiction, where he struggles to figure out when he is dreaming and when he is not. This bleeds over into our experience as the audience, as Cobb is our guide in the movie, and we know what he knows, and when he isn't sure, neither can we be. Early in the movie, it's established that when a person becomes lost in a dream, that dream becomes their reality. They accept it completely without question. And this is important because it's actually describing how we will feel by the end of the movie. In the film, the characters enter people's dreams in order to effect some kind of change. Inside the dreams, they will enter another dream and another. The dream within a dream mechanic is used so often and so confusingly that it starts to blur the lines between dreams and reality. We become heavily reliant on the totem to tell us when it's a dream and when it's not. But the totems can't be fully trusted either, since we're told that everyone has their own totem, except Cobb, who uses his wife's totem. The reason for having your own totem is that only you know its properties, and so it can't be tampered with and you can't be misled. So if Cobb is testing reality using a totem which is not his, then he's not really testing reality at all. The totem is a trick to convince us, the audience, that we know when Cobb is dreaming and when he is not. Cobb never really knows when he's dreaming, and neither do we. This is emphasised by the ending of the movie, an ending which still causes debate today. The ambiguous ending suggests that Cobb is in the real world, without actually confirming it. This is why so many people still debate it, about whether or not he got out of the dream. But the point of the ending is never about whether Cobb is in the real world or not. The point is that he doesn't care anymore. He's accepted whatever information he's being presented with as reality. And we like his character so much that when we're given the happy ending for Cobb, we too are happy to accept the presented reality. Just like Cobb.